This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining Giltedge and our webinar on Zimbabwe, which I will just preface as a country very near and dear to my heart, as my mother was born in Harare in the early days in Salisbury, and I used to go there a lot for my vacations, and a lot has changed, but a lot is still very much the same. So I'm so glad to be able to be chatting about this destination. All right, so here is the map of Zimbabwe, and it's an important one to sort of get a perspective of where Zimbabwe lies in context of the rest of Southern Africa. And you can see over here, there is Zambia in the northwest. It's landlocked, as you can tell. You've got Botswana over here in the southwest. You've got Mozambique, which is sort of aligned across the eastern side of Zimbabwe, and of course, good old South Africa in the south. And the context of showing you this map is that Zimbabwe is very, very accessible when it comes to combining it with other countries, all the countries surrounding it. Very often, people do go to Zimbabwe and Zambia within the same time frame. They're right across the border from each other. And Botswana is very, very close, very doable to include that in an itinerary. And of course, South Africa is maybe about an hour and a half or 2-hour flight away. So very doable in context of combining with other countries. Before I get this map, just wanted to show you some main destinations and areas of interest that I'm going to cover. And the map is important in just showing it in context. So of course, the most important area, or I should say the most popular area, is the Victoria Falls, known as one of the 7 wonders of the New World. Absolutely stunning. So here is Victoria Falls. Very close to Victoria Falls is Wangi National Park, which is south of the falls, so bear that in mind. Going a little further up over here is Matsudona National Park. A little further north is Kariba, which I'll speak a little bit more about. In fact, it is the largest man-made lake in the world. And very, very close to Mana Pools, gorgeous location, just kind of north of Kariba. So that is all in the same sort of western side of Zimbabwe. And I'm also going to talk a little bit about Matopo, which is in the southern western side of Zimbabwe as well. So that's just kind of giving you some context. And so bear that in mind as we move through the presentation. All right, access and logistics. So access to Zimbabwe is most often to the Victoria Falls, and that's the main entrance, Victoria Falls International Airport. And you get there via scheduled flights from Cape Town or Johannesburg. At the moment, there are very few international flights that go into the country directly, but I can say that is going to change. I was speaking a little earlier on with Hanson, and with the new airport that has been redone by China, we'll begin to see a whole lot more of direct flights coming into Zimbabwe and Zambia, and it'll really open up this area a lot more. I wanted just to quote that, interestingly enough, traffic to Zimbabwe has increased by about 15% over last year. And to the Victoria Falls itself, it has increased about 50%. So to most of us, Zimbabwe is a country that is the road less traveled, for example, as compared to Southern Africa or even Botswana or East Africa. But it is now ostensibly on the map, and we will begin to see an increase in traffic. But until that time, there is still a very light footprint, which is a great selling tool to Zimbabwe. So when people go to the falls or when people go on safari in Zimbabwe, there's a very light footprint, and this gives the sense of being more pristine and private. So anyway, Victoria Falls is the most convenient access point. It can easily connect by light aircraft to the other parks around the area. So it is by light aircraft for the most part on how you get around. But it is very close to Botswana. It's only about 62 miles away from Kasane, and as I said earlier on, which allows for accessibility to other destinations. And Livingstone, which is in Zambia, is situated directly across the border. That's only about 13 to 15 miles away. So it can be used as an alternative airport to Victoria Falls. And that's a great aerial view picture below. So Victoria Falls, it takes its name from, of course, these fantastic falls, which are known to many as the smoke that thunders. And the reason for this is when Livingstone first came and discovered the falls way back when, he saw the smoke and the spray, especially when he must have arrived there in its peak season, and you can hear it from miles away. Very dramatic. And so these falls, of course, are on the Zambezi River, and that is the shared border, natural border between Zimbabwe and Zambia. This area of the world is known in Africa as the action capital. And that is because there is a lot to do there, from bungee jumping for those who are not faint of heart, to a beautiful, quiet, serene trip on the Zambezi River at sunset. I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. So it goes from one extreme to the other, but there is a lot to do in Zimbabwe. But at the moment, when people just visit the falls and do something in the immediate area and do not take the opportunity to visit some of the parks, you do not need to be in Zimbabwe more than 2 nights at the max, if that's what you're doing. Most people go there for the falls, for some of these activities in the falls area, and are not really sampling or tasting the brilliance of the parks that I'd shown you a little bit earlier on. So just to let you know, a couple of the activities at the falls, since it is the main destination, you can, of course, do a guided tour of the falls. And they will tell you about its history and how it was formed, and that is about maybe a half a day. There are a lot of viewing points along the way in this really pristine and uncommercial destination. Many other falls, for example, Niagara is extremely commercial. Here it is untainted, and you can even see little wild animals, monkeys and little deer that kind of hop along the path with you. But the falls are spectacular, and there are a lot of different vantage points, and that's why it can take, a half a day to do it. Another wonderful thing to do is to have lunch or some meal at the Lookout Cafe. And this is perched about 300 or 400 feet above these turbulent rapids of the Zambezi River, and they overhang a giant chasm. It's called the Batoka Gorge, and here's a picture of it right here. This is under the eaves of the Lookout Cafe. Here, of course, is a picture of a guide, and if you look a little closely, you can see people have been armed with raincoats, because depending on when you're going, the spray can completely and absolutely drench you. It's part of the experience and the allure, of course, to show you how close you are to the falls. And here, of course, is a dramatic picture with a rainbow, which is a total treat if you get to see rainbows along the way. Moving along, I mentioned a river cruise along the Zambezi. It's beautiful at sunset. You can see a picture over here. And you have drinks and snacks, and you get to be on this great river. Now, the falls are extremely it's beautiful to see the falls, I was going to say, from the air. That's when you get the true perspective. And you can do it in many ways. Here's one of those little microflights. But you can do it by helicopter and also by plane. So a perspective of these gigantic falls from the air is an absolute must and a great suggestion. I said earlier on, bungee jumping, not for the faint of heart, but certainly as the backdrop, with the falls in the background, it is certainly one of the most superb places to go bungee jumping, and it's a great adrenaline rush, and it is wild, as we like to say, as the river itself. And then, of course, there are canopy tours and zip lining like over here, and gorge swings. And so, as I said, lots of different activities that you can add on to your general tour and walk along the falls. Now, a couple more things at the falls. If none of you have ever done it or seen Devil's Pool, that is actually a stunning picture, because not only are these people on the edge of this man-made infinity pool, but they've also got the joy of seeing a rainbow. So these people are truly blessed and privileged. But this, of course, can only be achieved when the falls are at their lowest. I'll go through some of that with you, but it tends to be like sort of November, January is really the window of opportunity to visit Devil's Pool. Also, Livingston Island is an island that you can also only access when the falls are at their lowest, and you take a little boat and you meander through these little channels, and it's truly, you know, one of those bucket list activities to experience. And another wonderful activity at the falls, of course, is this Bush Tracks Express train. And it feels like you're going back in time to the glorious age of the steam trains. And you can have drinks and snacks, and you, of course, can cross this bridge between Zambia and Zimbabwe, and you get this view from the vantage point of the train. So lots to do in the Victoria Falls area. This is a stunning view, absolutely stunning view of the falls, of the bridge, and gives you an idea of why it is so spectacular to be seen from this aerial perspective. Love this picture. All right, so in addition to the falls, there are some fabulous game parks which are, I was going to use the word neglected, but because Zimbabwe and Zambia, for that matter, are not necessarily known as great parks, people tend to go on their safaris in Botswana and South Africa. Even Namibia, people go to the Etosha, or in East Africa to the great Masai Mara or the Serengeti. But the thing to note is that there are some stunning game parks, including Hwange National Park, which is actually not too far away from the falls. And it's good to know if somebody just wanted to go to Zimbabwe alone, they could do the falls and they can go on safari. So it's very important to make that distinction. The great thing about Hwange, it used to be called Hwange when I was a little girl. When my mother was born in Rhodesia in Zimbabwe, and we used to go quite often. But it has one of the largest populations of elephants in Africa. So, you know, stunning. Botswana has a lot of elephants as well. But, you know, just to know that Zimbabwe has this allure. There are over 100 different types of animals. There are, you know, myriads of bird species. And also Zimbabwe also has a lot of viewing hides. So it's something that I could do a webinar on alone, just on the hides of Zimbabwe. And what a hide is these secluded areas that you can look at the animals through or from. Sometimes it's an aerial view, sometimes it's actually at the viewing point of the animals on the ground. You're slightly lower. But that's a wonderful way to be hidden and to see the animals through these hides. And they're usually, of course, over watering holes, which is where the animals congregate. And it's, again, a bucket list experience to be so close up. You don't have to be in the vehicle. You can actually be in these hides to view these animals. Also, there are a lot of stunning luxury safari lodges within these private concessions and in the park. And anytime you hear the word private concessions, you know that it allows you to go off the beaten track. So you don't have to keep to the road, which is fabulous. So you can track and at your heart's content. And of course, it allows you to do night drives. And so the other thing I wanted to say, as you can see, is the African wild dogs are also quite abundant in this park. African wild dogs are not seen necessarily in all the game parks. They tend to be in certain areas, so you're getting that as an additional viewing point. Wangi National Park. Just some pictures to whet your appetite. All right, so now we're moving from Wangi National Park, which is quite close to the falls, to Mana Pools, which, if you remember in the map, it's a little further north of Zimbabwe. It's kind of on the northwestern side of Zimbabwe. Absolutely beautiful. It's located on the southern side of the Zambezi River, which of course goes between Zambia and Zimbabwe, and it stretches for about 965 square miles of river frontage. Mana Pools it owes its name to 4 large pools which have been carved out by the Zambezi River over thousands of years. And Mana means 4 in the local Shona language. So there are the Shona people are the ones who live in the Zimbabwe area. Mana Pools is remote, and as a result, very low vehicle density, and that really is a selling point, because a lot of the parks, especially in the peak season tends to be our summer, Africa's winter, can be crazy. And here to have the exclusivity of this low vehicle density is a true plus in this unspoiled wilderness. You can go canoeing on the Zambezi River. Here's a little picture at the bottom over here. And you go past elephants and grazing, buffalo, and it's just, a real treat. It's a permanent water, and so as a result, it is a magnet for wildlife. Great hippo watching, definitely lots of crocodile viewing, and gorgeous scenery, just gorgeous scenery. There's floodplains, and there's riverine woodlands, and there's mountains of the Rift Valley. And so, again, I think the key point here is that it is kind of a secret. And we are going to start noticing Zimbabwe and these areas that we're chatting about becoming more and more popular. While the secret is still kind of not out, it is really a selling point to your clients to go to Africa and be in pristine, unspoiled nature with a low footprint. The access to these areas is all by light aircraft. So, the infrastructure at the moment is such that there's quite a big distance, between the falls and the various parks. And so the most sort of economical way to do it is to light aircraft. And visiting here in Mana Pools is limited to the dry season, which is April through to November. And in the rainy season, it's not a great spot to be. So, again, when you're talking to your consultants, as you're planning your trip around Zimbabwe, good to know when is the dry season, versus the rainy season, when is the best viewing time. Viewing time traditionally is always better in the winter when the grasses are low, and there it's much easier to spot the animals. They don't have access to a lot of water, so they congregate around water holes. And as a result, it's easier to spot them, especially, when you go to these hives and you can be really close to the watering hole. It's absolutely magnificent. So that's Mana Pools. Again, some stunning pictures of the area. All right. And then another great destination is Lake Kariba and Matsudona National Park. Now, Lake Kariba, I used to go there a lot when I was a little girl. It was created in the 1950s when the Zambezi Valley was flooded. And as I said earlier on, it is the largest man-made lake on Earth. 190 miles long, 90 miles wide. It's absolutely gorgeous and lots of great animal viewing. And it's lovely to take a little boat around the lake. That's the best way to see it, of course. And on the lake's southern banks lies the Matsudona National Park, also quite large, 870 square miles. And it has a great density of lion, herds of buffalo, highest populations of hippo and crocodile. And again, I bring this up just to, just to point out that the game viewing at these different parks in Zimbabwe is stunning. And they are often not, or as I said, they're often neglected just so that people can focus on the falls themselves. But they are absolutely amazing. And then Lake Kariba, it's been a popular destination with locals. As I said, we used to go there a lot, as well as international visitors. And you can relax, you can enjoy the vistas, the sunsets, and there's also some great fishing, great tiger fishing. So with Lake Kariba and Matsudona National Park, you can combine land and boat game viewing, which is wonderful because seeing the animals from the vantage point of the water is a whole different experience to seeing them in vehicles, so that, they're coming down towards you. And so that's really a big plus as well, these boat and land-based game viewing. And it's quite, vibrant wilderness area. You can go canoeing, you can go boating, you've got the sunset cruises, and you've got the game drives, and you can also do some walking. And as I said, Lake Kariba enchants guests due to its sheer size, as well as the spectacular and dramatic sun vistas. I'm going to show you a beautiful picture when I'm past this slide. But the ecology of the lake supports great diversity of wildlife, unbelievable birding. If you're a twitcher, that is the term for people who are birders. And again, like the other destinations, the best access is through light aircraft into Kariba or to other airstrips. So during the rainy season, it's not really a proposition, and you wouldn't even be able to get around by car because the roads are usually flooded. But Lake Kariba and Matsudona National Park are absolutely stunning. That is the picture I wanted to show you because that just says it all. That just says it all. All right, and now the last destination, now there's plenty of others, but this is sort of, truly an unusual destination is the Matobo National Park. It's close to Bulawayo, which is more in the southern western side of the country. So everything else we've discussed at this point is on the eastern western side, pretty much along the border with Zambia, and very close to the falls. But here, this Matobo National Park is further south, and it is home to some of the most majestic granite scenery in the world. Have a look at those pictures. They don't even look real. How did that happen? So it offers these stunning landscapes. These are of domes and spires and balancing rock formations, and they're all hewn from a solid granite plateau by millions of years of erosion and weathering. And so the park, the recreational park, also includes some great rock art, rock paintings as well, which is unbelievable. And also a prolific game viewing. There is the best place to see white and black rhino. And as you probably all know, that the rhino population in Africa is very, very endangered. So this is a real treat to know that they're around there. And it is a very intensive protection zone for that very reason. So the Matopos are, definitely a destination worth going to. Unbelievable. I was actually in Colorado a couple of weeks ago, and they have a spot called I think it's called the Garden of the Gods. And again, it's a similar concept, of rocks being hewn by nature over years, but the Matopos are so huge that it's actually mind-blowing. All right, so before I get onto this slide, just to say to you that, of course, there's Harare, which is the main airport into Zimbabwe, which is kind of in the northern part of the country. And there's also other places to go and visit, which I have not mentioned in this slideshow. But those are the main ones that are covered. Some of you may have been aware of the Zimbabwe ruins, the Great Zimbabwe ruins, which are quite a height to get to. I just wanted to bring that up because that is another destination. These are sort of ruins of some kind of an ancient civilization that is astounding on how they've actually been built. Similar in a way to Peru, you look at the rocks and you wonder how these ancient civilizations put these rocks together and built these ancient cities. But for the most part, the ones that we've mentioned, the Victoria Falls, Mana Pools, Sedona National Park, and the Matopos are the great destinations if you're going to do some kind of a circuit. Visit the parks, visit Kariba, and visit the stunning falls, the Victoria Falls. So just for some country information, the official language is English. Of course, there are the Shona people, and so they've got their local dialect, but most people speak English. And the dollar is widely accepted. So, we tend to price our trips to Zimbabwe in dollars. It does have malaria, so like many other destinations in Africa, people need to take their malaria tablets. And yellow fever is only really needed if the travelers are coming in from an area that is at risk for yellow fever. So if they are not doing that, they don't need actually a yellow fever injection. So people do need to get visas. They can be obtained on arrival, at the border. And because Zambia and Zimbabwe are so close to each other, you can actually get a uni visa, which actually means you can get into both Zambia and Zimbabwe for only $50. If you were just going to Zimbabwe, it's $30. And these are purchased at the border, and because of the currency problems, in the country, we always recommend that your clients bring enough cash in dollars so that they can have exactly enough to get your $50 for your CASA visa, your uni visa, or $30 if it's just going to be to enter one country. And by the way, this uni visa now has been actually expanded into Botswana as well. So if you wanted to do a day visit, for example, to Chobe National Park, which is really, really close to the falls, you can use that visa as well and do a three country access. A couple more stunning photographs. And by the way, those elephants, they like to go after those marula berries, which actually can make them drunk. And it's kind of funny sometimes to see the elephants loitering around after they've had a whole bunch of these marula berries. All right, the best time to travel to the park. Most parks, they offer, year-round, but it is best, as I said earlier on, during the dry season. So for Wangi National Park, the best time is September to October, where there are large concentrations of game. I've mentioned the elephants, and the herds drink from these water holes so that they can survive in the hot, arid environment. Remember, it's their winter, our summer, but it's Africa, so it's hot. All right, the Victoria Falls. The best opportunities are during May and December. The high water, where you have what they call the smoke that thunders with the high spray, and you can hear them, is between February and July. And in fact, in April, it's probably the peak. Sometimes it's actually too heavy. You can't even see your hands, let alone see the falls. So, but March and April, as I said, are the highest. And during this period, the spray can be dense. But it offers amazing rainbows, which is absolutely fantastic to see when viewed from the air. And I also wanted to mention that you can get these unusual moon rainbows, the lunar rainbows that happen around the falls. And that is a sight to behold. That is truly a sight to behold. So the low water runs between August and January. And I said earlier on, that's when you can go to the Devil's Pool. So you're not going to be washed away by the water. And also November and early December. Here there's very little spray, and the visitors are able to fully appreciate the geographical formation of the falls and the length of the falls. But some people can be disappointed if they go in December because they're not going to see it in its great splendor. So it's important to know, and if you certainly don't have to remember it all, but you can certainly ask your consultants, and I have all sorts of fabulous cheat sheets that I can send that shows you what the water levels are like, so you can share that with your clients. Mana pools, the ones that I mentioned were the 4 pools. Best time to go is between June and October. The animals come to the river to drink and graze, and the rainy season is a beautiful time, but not always easily accessible. As I said, many of the lodges are closed during what we call the green season. So Africa is a Rubik's Cube. You have to sort of know the seasons. Lake Kariba, which was, I said, the largest man-made lake in the world. Best time is July through October, again during the dry season. And then the low season is January to June, and some of the camps are closed until around March as the rains make it a little inaccessible. But look at that picture over here of a dramatic spout in the rain. Beautiful picture of the Victoria Falls. I mean, I have so many, but that's a lovely one just to show its fullness. And then I'm just going to run through these lodges very quickly. It's just an indication that the level of accommodation in Zimbabwe at all these locations is stunning. So you can have a lot of 5-star and down to 3 or 4-star, but there are a lot of 5-star that are absolutely gorgeous. Here's the Ilala Lodge, and very, very close to the falls. And this one here is one of the larger lodges. It has about 73 rooms, but always, gorgeous because it is so close in proximity. You can see it's beautifully furnished with lovely views. And I was just going to go here just to say, I've jumped ahead, that the one thing that Zimbabwe is known for with a lot of its hotels are these great green lawns that spread ahead of the properties. And then you've got the Old Drift Lodge. This one here is much smaller, and it's my preference. You only have 6 to 10 lodges. It gives you much more of a pristine and low footprint feel, but also very, very close to the falls themselves. Beautifully appointed, as you can see, with the mosquito netting, and it's a luxury tent. As you can see, the canvas on the top, it's a luxury tent, 5-star. Now, in the Victoria Falls, you also have Matetsi, which is located on the Zambezi River. And okay, the slide is not forwarded. I've got something there. Let me just see. I hope it's forwarding right now because it's forwarding on mine. Hope you're seeing this right now. Just again showing you the luxury and the beautiful woodwork and stone combination. At Hwange National Park, we've got the Simalisa camp. Beautiful, only 7 elegantly furnished tented suites, and the main deck area includes split level, and so it gives you all these different vantage points of watching the pools below. As you can see, it's beautifully appointed. Great to watch sunsets. I do hope that the slides are forwarding right now. You've got Little Makololo, which is also at Hwange National Park. Again, only 6 stylish tents. Beautifully appointed, a little bit more rustic this one is, but very much the African feel. And all the camps, of course, have the fireplace, which is absolutely imperative in Africa to share your stories around the fire at night. At Kariba, you've got Boomy Hills. I went there a lot when I was young. And again, only 10 rooms, and it's very contemporary and as well has some African style in it as well, and an infinity pool. So absolutely beautiful. I just love to say Boomy Hills because it brings me back to my childhood. Lots of birding and fishing, and of course here in this area you have the Tonga culture. So again, you can always experience the local culture throughout Zimbabwe, the Shona and the Tonga. There are quite a few gorgeous viewing points of the lake. absolutely beautifully appointed. And again, even though the mosquito nets are important, they also just visually are very appealing. Mana pools, we've got Rokomenchi, 10 spacious tents. Most of these are luxury tents, but you can see how close the animals get. Many of these, by the way, do have family tents. And so, you can certainly have multi-generational parties be close together. Just showing you the wild dogs, some of the beautiful fireplaces, and the luxury nature of the tents, even though they are tents. Again, here at Mana Pools, you have Chikwina, and this is on the eastern boundary of Mana Pools. Again, smallish, only 10 tented camps and 2 family tents. Look at this picture here of being in your own little private plunge pool, and you can see the animals. Oh, it's just such an exotic experience. And the elephants, of course, eating on the marula berries on the left over here, and they wander around drunk. Beautifully appointed. You've got Kanga Camp. Again, very luxurious. And I'm just going to end off by saying to everybody, we've been mentioning this a lot, but Giltedge Africa won for the 8th straight year in a row the World Travel Awards. So we are, very, very excited. It basically means to you as the travel consultant that you are in excellent hands. The service and everything that we do is first class, and you can rest assured that your clients will have a very safe and memorable experience. So I'm just going to end by saying thank you all for joining Giltedge Africa on this stunning visual adventure. And we certainly hope that you will reach out to us to customize a trip that is more off the beaten track. And the secret is not fully out yet. So good to capitalize on it so they can have bragging rights to say that they've been further in the Victoria Falls, they've been able to experience the absolute beauty of Zimbabwe. So I'm just going to thank you all. I'm just going to open this up to chat. So if anybody wants to ask me any questions, you can certainly put things in the chat box, or you can always email me and be happy to answer any questions you may have. And so I'm actually going to switch off the recording right now. This is available to everybody, the whole presentation. So the recording is now on pause.